Yep. All right, I think we are going. Sometimes Facebook takes a little bit longer to get going live, but hey, I think we're on. Ben King. Do you go by Ben or Benjamin?
I tried going by Benjamin one time, but I think that's too many syllables for people. So
they can't handle it.
Benjamin. I was like,
Benjamin.
Hi, I'm Benjamin. And then they say, oh, nice to meet you, Ben.
Yeah, they just want to feel like they're buddy-buddy with you.
Yeah.
Because right off the bat, you already seem like a cool person that you want to know. I don't know. That's how I felt like when I first met you. I'm like, oh, dang, I want to be that guy's friend.
I think it's because there's not many Benjamins in the world.
Yeah, that could be it.
Benjamins are in history, like Benjamin Franklin.
Huh. Yeah, that could be it.
And so they're not used to calling contemporary people Benjamin.
That could be definitely it. Actually, that's very true. Like, the only time you say Benjamin is usually Benjamin Franklin, right? Like, you can't say Ben Franklin. You have to say Benjamin Franklin.
Because that's too personal with somebody who's so respected from history.
Right. Yeah, you just have to say Benjamin. But for you, Ben King is easier for people to say. So, well, Ben King, Benjamin King, welcome. We'll make you like as high as level of Benjamin Franklin. So,
thank you.
Benjamin Franklin. Sorry. Benjamin King, we're glad to have you on. This is episode number 17. It feels like it's been going on much longer than 17, but at the same time, holy crap, we're only at 17.
So. That is way cool. Congrats.
Thank you. Just a little tidbit for the listeners, especially if you're listening on iTunes. We actually are looking for more ratings. So if you like this, give us a 5-star rating. If you don't like it, give us a 4-star rating. We love it all. We want your feedback. We want to know if you guys like it. And any other platform that you can either subscribe or leave a rating, that would be much, much appreciated. We've actually been climbing in ranks. You used to type in Scott Talks Podcast and you couldn't find it. It didn't even show up.
But now you're findable.
But now it's findable. And little by little, we're actually getting closer to the top. So thanks to all the listeners. We've actually almost tripled our listeners in the last 3 weeks compared to the last 3 months. So super excited about that. So thanks to everyone that watches and listens. So, Benjamin King, we were actually friends from our days in Nauvoo, Illinois. And for those that don't know Nauvoo, Nauvoo is how you spell it, Nauvoo. It's a special place. And we were actually missionaries there, performing missionaries.
Yeah, 12 years ago.
Holy crap, 12 years ago. It was 2007. Holy smokes. Yeah, 2007 for the summer. We were just there for the summer, and you were part of the singing group, and I was part of the music, the band. I was part of the band. I'm trying to just get descriptions. And we didn't get to perform nearly as much as you guys. You guys were all over the place. You guys got to travel, and it was great.
We didn't get pulled on wagons by, every day.
That's true.
Horses.
But we were also in the hot, humid sun all day. But it was still great. We got to travel. You're right. We were pulled on a wagon for about half the day, and then at night or middle of the day, we'd perform in one of the concert halls. But you guys were so cool. You guys get to put on a play like what, 2-3 times a day?
Literally.
Yeah, the same play for a whole summer. And then we performed together at night. We call it Sunset on the Mississippi, which is really cool because it's literally on the banks of the Mississippi River. And we get all the bugs in our face. And no matter what you're doing, you're breathing, you're playing, you get the bugs in your mouth.
And the show goes on.
That
was the most romantic setting. Just when you're in front of the mile-wide river and the way that the sunset would create all the colors in the sky and just play old-time songs. And
it was so much fun.
I understand.
Dressed in pioneer clothes. Not pioneer, but 1800 clothing. I guess eventually pioneer clothing. But we played old folk songs. We played modern comedy songs. And we had a lot of fun with, I got to perform with you guys on a lot of those things. And eventually I forget what, Sister Graves, is that her name? She's like, pull that band guy off. I couldn't do any of the skits.
I think I remember that.
I was in a few of them, and she goes, "Who is that guy? I don't think he's part of the singing group," and I wasn't. But I appreciate you guys letting me sneak in on stage on your acts. So that was really fun. I do also remember an occurrence where a bat showed up.
Oh my gosh!
Do you remember that?
How do you know about that?
Oh, come on, we all talked about it. It was like the first or second week there in the summer, and I don't remember all the details, but how tall are you? You're like 6 foot.
I'm 6'5".
6'5". Okay, so here's this 6'5", and I think you were the oldest out of all of us there.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
you were the oldest, and by the way, I think the cutoff was 26.
24.
24. Okay,
so I was 24 when I was cast, but I was 25.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So, so here we are, and you guys are like going through your house, and you go into the basement. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I heard, it was the basement, and all of a sudden a bat flies out, and you come screaming out like a girl. This 6'5" guy comes screaming like high-pitched scream, and anyway, the other guys had to talk about it, so that's why I know.
That is so. Yeah, I was asked to be the leader, kind of just to help watch over and have stewardship over the group because we all lived in the same house. I was supposed to collect the rent and pay it to the mission president. And I was downstairs. That was the one place you could go to practice any of the solo pieces that you have. And I brought my lava because I used to live in the islands, and that was really comfortable. So I'm just wearing my lava. And if you've never seen a lava before, it just looks like a skirt.
Yep, a long skirt.
A long skirt. So I'm in the basement, and I'm singing, and something flies by my head, and I caught it out of the corner of my eye. It was as big as a bird, but it fluttered like a butterfly. And I thought, what was that? And 10 seconds later, it came flying by again. But it felt like it was diving for my head. And so I let out the scream that had no warning. It just erupted out of my throat.
Yeah.
And it happened to be very high pitch. And then I come running up the stairs, and they hear the scream, and it's a girly scream, and I'm in a dress, and they're wondering. I lost all respect. All respect went down the drain, and I told them, "There's a bat." And then once I gained my composure,
yeah,
I realized I just blew it. The whole summer is now ruined because of that incident.
No, we all loved you. You don't worry. Your competence was still intact. Your trustworthiness and love for you was definitely intact.
Well, thank you.
I think it's just something funny to think. Oh man, it happens to the best of us, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Unexpected things in life.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so anyway, that was 12 years ago. That was a long. Wow. I think about those nights all the time. I mean, just the experience, the not only the hot temperature and humidity, which me as a California boy is not used to that kind of heat. The intense emotional roller coaster I think that you feel every day in the place like that. Yeah. Being able to be part of, for those that aren't LDS, this is a very historic LDS city, not just a site, but like an actual city that was essentially built from ground up by the LDS Church in the 1840s, and made it from a swamp to a almost the second largest city in the state of Illinois at the time. In fact, it was growing so big that politically it became the Mormons might be taking over politically, and so it became a very robust city very, very quickly, and it was a place that immigrants from Europe and across the country and Canada as well were coming to in flocks. And so I have ancestors from there. Do you have ancestors that lived in Nauvoo?
I think I do. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Specifically.
Yeah. I'm sure if you've got enough ancestors, enough lineage in LDS, I'm sure you've got someone that lived there at some point.
Yeah, it wasn't It wasn't until I was there that I think my mom mentioned, "Oh yeah, we have an ancestor buried there." And what? I didn't know that.
That was the same when I was in Denmark. It was like, oh, by the way, you have like tons of family from Denmark. I'm like, what? And I'm here. And they finally sent me over, like, this is before the time of, well, I guess smartphones, but I had to print out my genealogy at the cafe internet and gave it to my host family. And they're like, oh yeah, this is Louvre and this is the city and all. Anyway, it's really cool. But it was one of those, like, until I got there that I didn't realize that I had family from there. So yeah, Nauvoo is a really special place. Have you been back since?
Once. I went back the next year.
Oh, okay. Nice.
My wife and I, after we got married. And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can't wait to go back.
Yeah, my favorite was when the storms came through, to be honest. It was just, you just don't get that kind of weather anywhere that I've lived, at least, and outside of Illinois. And I love weather. I think the scarier, the better. Mm-hmm. I want to go to a hurricane. Just kidding. I don't really want to, but I want to be closer. I like that kind of stuff. But it's just kind of a majestic place. You just feel the spirits of those that lived there before, and I mean it's hard to not feel something, religious or not. It's hard to not feel something there.
Right.
So, okay. So since then, I mean, I think we've seen each other like once or twice since then. Last time I saw you, I was working at a Keller Williams real estate building.
Yep.
And you were buying, and you were buying what are those called?
A diffuser.
A diffuser. I have one right here. And that's when you started. That's when it seemed like, at least publicly on social media, that you were starting to get into Qigong.
Yeah, and it took a little courage. Let me correct that. It took a lot of courage. It still takes courage to talk about this, to be open about this, because there's different opinions about it based on understanding, perspective.
Yeah.
Anytime you say that you do something with energy, it's strange or it's weird. And I get that. I totally understand, because I was there too.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what Qigong is. It's energy.
Is that what it means in Chinese?
It's two Chinese words or concepts put together, Qi and Gong. And Qi is their word for this, for vital life force. It's even interpreted as the breath of life. So that which animates matter. And Gong means cultivation or skill. So you've heard of kung fu.
Yeah.
And most people equate kung fu with martial arts.
Right.
Well, it's not exclusive to just fighting. Kung fu is any level of mastery that one attains, having invested a lot of time and skill.
Yes.
So it's the cultivation of the skill. So somebody can become a kung fu master chef if they spent much time and effort developing the skill of cooking. You can become a kung fu master of almost anything. So,
and that's okay in the Chinese culture, right? That they know that, they understand that.
The Chinese are phenomenal at mastering abilities.
Yeah.
And you could see it still today. Well, this has been a centuries tradition,
millennia
of dedicating oneself for the mastery of an ability or a skill. And as the world's longest surviving civilization, I would say their greatest gift to mankind right now, to the world, is the ability and the understanding of cultivating life force. Life force energy, or this what they call the Qi. To understand energy, the Qi, the way that the Chinese have developed and experienced it for thousands and thousands of years, you have to experience it. Energy is only understood by experiencing. And my connection with it came really through my experience and training as an actor. So all the years, the 14 years that I've had in the performing arts, most of it's been on stage, a little in film, like that summer that we shared in Nauvoo, singing and dancing on stage. I experienced something, and I think this is what helped me be good at what I did at a young age in performing, was I always was able to feel a connection with the audience.
Yeah.
And I've had directors tell me, I had one theater professor even come up to me on campus and just straight up tell me, I'm jealous of you because you have stage presence. And you can't really train that. Not everybody has it.
Yeah.
The ability to stand on a stage and present oneself with a powerful, literal connection. And I could develop that with my scene partner if they were also open. But in theater, we call it emotion. You got to have an emotional connection, or have emotion in what you do. But it's a very real power, and it's what draws in. So I could be in a massive arena, and I've performed in front of an audience of 10,000 people. But because of the energy and the emotional connection, it felt as intimate as you and I right here in this small room.
Yeah.
And so this is the ability of really creating impact in a theatrical setting, or what professional actors strive to skillfully develop in film, is how well can you be genuine and establish that emotional bond with the influence that creates. And I've always been impressed, and I've always admired that power because it's life-changing. I loved how people would come, sit in an audience, and witness a performance, a story played out, and emotionally invest themselves, where they see themselves as the main character. And then after 2 hours, their life has changed. And even though they haven't spoken a word with other audience members, they're united in a way because they all experienced it together. Yeah. Wasn't that a great show?
Yeah.
You could even smile at each other as you exit the theater.
It's kind of like the opposite of a book. You finish a book, you're like, I just went through this emotional roller coaster and I have no one to share it with.
And I'm the only one.
Yeah. But in the play setting, you have hundreds, if not thousands, right, of audience members that just saw the same thing, but it also maybe connected emotionally, but also perceived it slightly different than the person next to them. Not to keep going on what you say, but I would actually second what you're saying, though. I mean, I've been in some plays, and I was also as a music performer, but I feel like more so plays, it's easier to connect with them because I maybe it's more of the words, but I'm not saying that I have this the emotion connection, but I think I've seen glimpses of what you're talking about. And it's pretty powerful on the performer's end.
Oh yeah.
Right? You go, oh my gosh. I just like inside I'm kind of bawling my eyes out, and you kind of feel like the audience is too, right? You have this feeling of like, wow, they just felt how personal of an experience that was for you to them. It's like an energy sent to them, right? Like if you feel it, it's that much easier for them to feel. Is that kind of what it is?
That's exactly what it is.
Okay.
The more vulnerable and present you are, the more real the situation is.
Okay.
And then you forget that you're really acting out or performing anything.
Right.
You have words that have been patterned in the mind through memorization, and you know what you're supposed to do through the blocking and the staging. But you are so invested and emotionally raw in portraying this story through a character. So there was always that power. There was always that connection. There was always that energy. And so when I began learning Qiqong, I was apprehensive of the energy aspect of it because, honestly, I didn't want to be spiritually harmed. I didn't want to be introduced to anything that would be spiritually harmful to me.
I mean, you're LDS, right? So I get that, right? Because as learning multiple languages, that too, but learning multiple religions around the world, you kind of go, how much of this, how deep do you get into it to where you start to believe it, or you start to see elements of truth in it, and then it kind of goes, whoa, wait a second. What about this truth that you've been growing up with? But I actually have a philosophy on that, but go ahead. I mean, it seems like you've kind of keep going.
Yeah, you worded it really well. So because it's a mind-body practice.
Right.
It's a mind-body-spirit practice.
And we don't do that in the LDS culture very well.
It's not an emphasis. It's not a focus. It's not within I would even say within Christianity. There are discussions of the virtues, the Christ-like attributes, with the encouragement and the expectation that we develop them. Because then this is what becomes rewarded with a good life of happiness and eternal life beyond. And then, of course, perform and do the good deeds. You want to bless mankind. But there isn't a practice of this is what you can do in an exercise format with structured movement that incorporates breathing and mindfulness, training the consciousness to integrate body, mind, spirit together.
Right.
And so this is what has been really unique. And how I have discovered for myself, practicing Qigong has actually helped me live my religion because of what it helps me understand about myself.
Right.
And all aspects of my being, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual.
So when you were learning it at first, you had apprehensions towards it because of, hey, this is not quite a religion, but what would you state it as? It's not a religion. Is it like a yoga kind of practice? But
Qigong is the practice of it, especially the medical Qigong, which is what I practice. It's very much rooted within the tenets and the principles of Taoism.
Yeah, okay.
And there are two ways of viewing Taoism. And before this, I didn't know anything about Taoism.
What Taoism was.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'll talk about that here for a second. There is an organized religious part of Taoism where there are Taoist priests and there's a lineage, and one may become an ordained Taoist priest and inherit a lineage. And you're connected to a temple, and there's all sorts of, rituals included in it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, Taoism really is a philosophy. It's a way of life. It's the Tao itself, Tao or Dao, is interpreted as the way.
Yeah. I remember one when I was studying it, one analogy or one lesson, parable. I don't know if one way that you would say it is like you never step in the same river twice. Does that sound familiar? Like if you step in a river, the reason why it's not the same river is because it's always changing.
The constant flow.
So it's like this. Well, of course, I'm in the Mississippi River, right? But not really, because it's different. The format of it is the particles around you are different, so it's always a constantly changing thing. And so I think there's the Tao of Pooh, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what it's? Yeah. I never read it, but I think that analogy or that parable is in that. So I actually have a lot of respect for Taoism alone. I mean, it's been years since I've actually dive deep into it, and that's why I don't remember everything, like more than 12 years. So
it's remarkably impressive, and I have more respect for it too. And what I found is, with what I understand of Latter-day Saint theology and what the doctrines are, there is incredible congruity And it lines up very well
Yeah.
with the principles of Taoism. It's
and not so much the religious aspect or the like organized religion portion of it, the philosophy of Taoism.
at least the philosophy
Yeah.
of Taoism.
Yeah.
It's very much based in the understanding that there is the Tao, which is the divine, or which we could refer to as God. And all things emanate from the Tao, including us. And it is pure light. I don't understand enough if the Tao is equated with an individual. I can't say that.
Yeah.
But there is the divine power.
There's divinity somewhere.
Correct. And we have that spark of the divine that's in us. We are spirit body existing in a state of duality within a physical body.
That's totally LDS doctrine.
And we have to
Hardcore.
learn, our purpose of being here is to understand the opposition.
Yeah.
And we overcome through cultivating virtues, essentially all of the Christ-like attributes. Benevolence, kindness, integrity, wisdom, confidence, faith. So all of those are important. And in the medical sense, the part of the pathway of healing is by cultivating the virtues. If you want to overcome stagnations or blocks of the qi that's flowing in the system, you learn how to develop acceptance and have a balance. It's all about balance. It's all about understanding that we as human beings are part of nature. And nature is governed by seasons and cycles and changes. And when you have that proper alignment and that balance, then you flow. You flow in life. You flow with the qi, the energy. And so the mind-body practice is about cultivating that. It's how you can discover how energy feels in yourself. Now, again, remember, I understood this because as an actor, I felt what that sort of energizing, electrifying power was when it was harnessed with a direct intent. And now I'm just applying it through this mind-body practice and bringing it inside of a clinical setting so that it's helping myself and others reconnect to, what we say, reconnect to the true self, reconnect to that part of you that has been you for a long time.
The Tao within you.
It's your soul, your eternal soul. So the Chinese word is shen xin, but it's the eternal soul. And it is very much that part that is the true you that has that connection with the divine, that has the spark of the divine that's in you. So it goes very deep. And the more I study it and the more I practice on my own, just the deeper my respect goes for this practice. So on the topic of happiness, okay,
Yep.
with Qiqong, one doesn't really understand how divided one is, how divided the world is, how divided society is, until they go through the process of integrating and experiencing oneness. And I know when I say oneness, we have this image of maybe the Dalai Lama or the Buddha, and it's oneness. It's a very Eastern thought and philosophy.
Well, is it Orientalism?
Sure, that's a good word for it.
I may be, anyway, there's a whole book about it. It's been a while since I've read that book, but yes, it's very Eastern, right? It's not so much of a Western culture thing to say, become one.
Become one.
Maybe religiously as a husband and wife, right? When you get married, you become one, or become one with God, right? As I am, let them become one with me as I am one with you, Jesus says, right?
Correct.
I mean, obviously we could take that I'm assuming Taoism can fit into that aspect right there.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, it's very much so a Eastern cultural thing versus a Western, at least the ideology behind it.
And a big part of that really is because of the scientific model.
Mean? What do you mean by that?
So our outlook of the being is really predominantly based within the medicine, with how the medical world looks at the body and the being.
Yeah.
And that is even rooted within 17th century Eastern Europe, the Enlightenment, with Rene Descartes and Isaac Newton, on how they formulated that everything in the universe can be explained in a very predictable, logical, linear way. And it requires the separation of mind and matter. I won't go too deep into this, but it takes man and separates him from nature, and again from the cycles, from the patterns of I'll just say nature, and also the spirit and the emotions from the physiology. So if somebody becomes ill, the two main objectives of Western medicine is to eradicate the symptoms, prevent death.
Yep.
And they will isolate and just address the symptoms with no consideration of the spiritual aspect, the emotional aspect of the being. Okay, you were talking about tangents and how sometimes we might get off on tangents.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember how I got onto that one, but
so as far as this goes, it seems like for example, I had stomach problems for years. I don't so much anymore because I have a freaking awesome wife that helps me eat healthy. That's probably part of it.
Good for her.
But I mean, I've had like 4 or 5 colonoscopies. I mean, it was pretty intense. And almost every time they wouldn't find anything. And then they'd ask me at the end, after I'm awake, are you stressed? And go, well, yeah, of course I'm stressed. I'm in college or, whatever I'm going through. And so to me personally, it's taken years for me to accept this, but I feel like those stomach problems weren't so much just the food, right? As much as my wife does do a very good job making sure I eat more healthy than I did as a bachelor, but also it is the stress. I think there's a lot of less stress in my life now being married and having a companion, right? That makes life tremendously better. But it's come years for me to say, you know what? It wasn't, because I wanted it to be something like, cut out that part of the intestines, right? Like just, there's always this pain right here, like just
isolate and deduce.
Yeah, right. Surgically, a cousin of mine had the same problem and they just cut it out. And ironically, it didn't really fix it. It was a short-term fix. And so how much of it is a scientific medical solution of, well, you have this disease, and don't get me wrong, Lyme's disease, Crohn's disease, I mean, those are all real things, but how much of them can be an element of the mental situation, right? I mean, I'm still stressed all the time, but I don't have stomach problems nearly as bad as I used to. But I think if I were to be honest with myself, I would say, especially during those years, it was stress-induced.
I listened to an interview by a doctor, Bruce Lipton, who gave this shocking statistic that 90% of doctor visits are stress-induced.
Really?
90% of what people go to the doctors to see. And so this is a perfect case in point. This is kind of the point that I was leading up to about how that's a major problem in the Western world today, and certainly in the medical field, is cutting out and disregarding the spiritual and emotional component of our being when it comes to illness and disease. And so understanding that we are, and nothing will change this fact. We are spirit. We are tangible essence, physiology, and we are energy. All things are energy. And modern physics just proves that now. But this is something that the ancient Chinese understood thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So to go back to the point of happiness, how does this relate to happiness? Happiness is first understanding the fundamental truth of one's nature and living in that oneness. That is a beginning. That's a start. I personally believe that oneness precedes wholeness. And you pointed out a good example. It's within religion that we understand the importance of oneness because we want to have oneness with God. We want to have oneness in our relationships, our marriages, our most important relationships. But we have to go deeper than that. We have to start where oneness begins, and that's oneness within self. And I work with a lot of people who come to my clinic who I also train to teach them some exercise movements that are at war with themselves. They resist aspects of themselves. They hate some of their body.
Something they've done in the past, or relationships that they're in, or something that they are not happy with, so much so that it doesn't allow them to have peace. Is that essentially what people come in with problems with?
Yeah, absolutely. Correct. It's this constant struggle and tug of war of I want to be healthy and happy, and we're conditioned by society with a mindset of I just want to take a pill and make it all better. We all want the magic pill.
Right.
Or just some way to explain it away as it's genetic, or it must be something that I'm eating. All of those do play factors. They all contribute to what could be creating illness and disease.
In the sense that, like, hey, genetically you may be more prone to a certain type of cancer.
Right.
Or our guest from 2 weeks ago, she says that in her family, it's passed on of, what did she call it? It wasn't, I guess OCD, like legit OCD. And it's a thing that's genetically has been passed, generation to generation to generation. And so are you saying that it's able to be fixed even if it's genetic, or are you saying that, it's not always genetic? I'm trying to figure out what you were stating there.
I'm saying genetics play an influence. What we tend to excuse away.
Because, and you just say, that's genetic, it's just how I am.
Right.
Okay.
And I'm not going to consider that my spirituality is actually in the gutter. Or I'm not going to consider all the stress that I'm dealing with and the fact that I am chronically angry all the time. This is one way where people tend to live divided.
Yeah.
Where spirituality has become almost exclusive just to religion.
Yeah, right. I mean, well, unless you go to Seattle, and then
Why?
I mean, that's where I was a missionary, and it's either they were Buddhist in the sense of spirituality, they were spiritual, or they were atheist. I mean, that was the agnostic to the sense of this kind of spirituality of like spiritual healing, or they were atheists. I mean, there was nothing, right? And they were just, not all of them were grumpy, but they were usually grumpy, they're just like, leave me alone. I'm an atheist. I'm not happy with life. God, if there is a God, why would this happen? So, anyway, sorry, that's my experience, because I agree. Spirituality is 99.9% generalized as a religion.
Correct.
But I have run into a huge populace in an isolated area like Seattle where spirituality was actually kind of like this. And maybe because that's the culture. I mean, and it's mostly Buddhism, right? They're like, oh, I'm Buddhist. I'm like, well, what does a Buddhist believe? They're like, I don't know. I mean, but they would call themselves a spiritual person.
Okay, at least they had some consciousness of spirituality outside of an organized faith.
Yeah. Well, they're like, well, I do yoga. I mean, things like that. And I think from what I'm understanding, it sounds like there's a little bit of yoga mixed in with Qigong. I mean,
so yoga, that originates from India. Mm-hmm. Yoga is considered a sister to Qigong.
Okay.
Qigong is Chinese, and it has a written, recorded history that is over 4,000 years old.
Wow.
And in fact, some of these original writings were images of people performing these movements.
Oh, that's cool.
What peasants would do out in the rice field.
Yeah.
To ward off the evil.
Yeah.
Or to just warm the body up.
Yeah.
In preparation for work and for labor. So they're showing what is called the Dayin movements, mm-hmm. and so in cultivating energy, especially through the practice of Qigong, it naturally entails integrating body, mind, spirit together in oneness.
Right.
When there's oneness, there can be wholeness. Where there's wholeness, then we can be in a state of inner peace, contentedness, that sense of harmony within oneself, because you're strengthening your relationship. When you reconnect to the true self, you are strengthening the relationship that you have with God, because that is the source.
Yeah.
And you're strengthening the relationship with Earth, because that is the source of this aspect of the being.
So you can't be an atheist doing this.
It is, I'm so convinced that to really experience wholeheartedness and connection with one's true self, we all must awaken to the reality that there is a divine, and we have a connection with that divine.
So you can be Muslim, you can be Hindu, you could be obviously Taoist, you could be LDS, you could be born again Christian.
Or you not ascribe to any organized faith whatsoever, mm-hmm. just as long as you can be open and accept the understanding that
that there's a deity,
that there is deity. Yes, deity in the sense that a supreme divine power from which all things originated from.
Got it.
And what I also appreciate within Taoism and the understanding is that the goal is to cultivate, refine, and become empowered through the virtues, and so that you can return back to the Tao in an immortal state.
In an immortal. Okay, sorry. Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds very Christian, to be honest.
It's remarkable.
So here's a random question. Taoism in China, being a communist country, a lot of religion is disappeared. How does that function? Do you know how? I mean, it seems like Qigong is it still pretty big in China, or is it?
It's not what it used to be.
So since the revolution, the communist revolution, it seems like a lot of people are not practicing Qigong like they used to.
Well, right. And this is how things came down about 20 years ago. There are 3 different schools of Qigong. There's martial Qigong, there's health or medical Qigong, and then there's spiritual Qigong. So the martial Qigong, you have people training in order to cultivate energy for greater strength, power, agility, endurance. And these are the martial artists who are performing the superhuman feats of smashing bricks. And
Bruce Lee
is the one who made martial Qigong popular in the Western world, here in the United States.
Yeah.
So if you've ever seen demonstrations like that, and you can go on YouTube, they're loaded with videos. If you look for hard Qigong or martial Qigong, it's all showy. It's very showmanship. You'll have two guys with iron spikes that are sharpened at both ends, and they're piercing it against this part of their neck where it's very vulnerable.
Oh.
And instead of piercing or breaking the skin, it bends in the middle. Because through energy cultivation, they develop what is called iron shirt. I'm serious.
No.
I've seen this demonstrated.
This neck where there's no muscle.
It doesn't break.
Doesn't break.
No.
No way.
It's called iron shirt.
I'll look it up after this.
This is why anciently the Chinese warriors and generals would train in Qigong.
What's that movie called? Flying Dragon or
Crouching
Tiger, Hidden Dragon. So I mean, there's some stuff in there that just doesn't make sense, like physically, right? I mean, it's just like because of physics, right? Like video games, right? Well, video games don't have to follow the law of physics, but in this case, it's like holy smokes! I mean, I'm sure it's elaborated, right? But people aren't flying off trees with Qigong, are they?
I'll show you a video before I leave, and I'll let you decide for yourself. Yeah,
okay,
I'm for
all
real.
right. Wait, people jumping off a tree and flying?
Being able to generate the chi with increasing the temperature and emitting the energy from the palm so hot that you actually create flame.
Shut up. Okay.
So
all right. Okay. I you know what? I actually believe this. I do. It's just one of those like, wow. There's I don't remember what religion or like what philosophy, if it is Taoism, but there's a I think it's the Himalayas. I saw the video. I mean, it's these men in, I think, not wearing anything but like one towel, and they're in a circle, and they create so much heat from like concentrated focus that it's steaming out in the snow.
Yeah.
Like, and it's not just their body. I mean, obviously bodies don't steam unless there's massive heat and when there's cold weather, or from your breath, right? But this was like from their heads, their shoulders. I mean, it was just like a mental focus that they could heat their bodies up so much just purely by focus. So it sounds kind of like that, right? Like if you can stop a pointed spear piercing your neck by making it bend, that's a lot of chi, a lot of energy.
So there's a book called Phenomena, I believe, and it was written by Annie Jacobson. Another one of her books, she was nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, I believe, for another one of her books that she wrote. But in this book, Phenomena, she's investigating the U.S. government's history in their investigation of the paranormal, extrasensory perception.
Mind control, ghosts.
Everything that the CIA and the U.S. government come out and admitted, in the 1970s, they researched it. They researched it at Stanford
LSD
University.
Power.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In that book, she has an entire chapter dedicated to Qigong.
No, that's so cool.
Because of how, through the energy cultivation, you're able to perform superhuman feats. And the development of extrasensory perception.
Yeah.
These are just some of the things. So to go back to what happened 19, 20 years ago, that's the physical martial arts objective. Then the health Qigong is you're cultivating the energy for health, for well-being, for vitality, and even longevity of life. You can live a long time, way beyond the average, by living in harmony with the earth, the seasons, and by having ample energy.
I believe that. World War II vet, this was decades ago on video. He, I think he was 100 at the time. So how did you live so long? He goes, I'm stress-free. He goes, I don't worry about anything. I just am happy all the time. And I think you can't just be happy. There has to be a connection to your surroundings to let you be happy. And you have to accept it, right? You have to accept the negative things in your life, not just as an element of, well, I guess that it is what it is, right? It can't be just that. It has to be like, there's something that you can learn from this, and you just let it roll off your back. And so anyway, it's always stuck with me. Like longevity is because it's the lack of stress. And I keep saying that because I'm always stressed. Lauren knows I'm always stressed.
Yeah.
So
much of it is through the resiliency.
Right.
That I'm just not going to emotionally attach myself to things that take me to the extremes.
Yeah.
And so all of these negative acquired emotions of the anger, the fear, the insecurity, the loneliness, the anxiety, the depression, this is part of the human experience, but people get stuck in it and they become chronic, and the patterns.
This is how my parents took care of it, so I'm going to take care of it this way. Or this is how my doctor said I should take care of it. Or this is what society says I have to do to take care of it.
So to experience holistic healing requires one to go on a journey, a self-discovery journey of, man, what is it that I'm holding on to that I don't need to anymore, that that drains me emotionally and drains the life force, the chi, or stagnates it. And so spiritual Qigong, that's for the cultivation and the evolution of the soul. All three of them really all have interlap with each other. You can't just solely focus on one. It's a mind-body practice, which incorporates all three of these. But with communist China, the nature of communism itself, it's not friendly to religion whatsoever. And so they tried cracking down on a particular form of spiritual Qigong called the Falun Gong. And it became a genocide where the government was...
Really? Killing people,
apprehending them in the middle of the night, torturing, harvesting their organs, raiding the medical Qigong hospitals.
Why were they harvesting the organs? To donate, or what? Or they just did it?
Let's just say that after all these apprehensions, all of a sudden the organ market started flourishing in China.
For real.
For real.
Okay, cool. I mean, not cool. I'm saying that sarcastically. Wow. Okay. So they take these people that they don't like, and I'm sure it wasn't just...
that are resisting the
government. That are resisting, the transitions of mental...
Right.
Hey, the government's your new religion. Mao is essentially your deity. I mean, not really, but in the similar
what Mao
sort.
did through the cultural wars did shift a lot of things, and he took the spirituality out of the medicine because he wanted to appeal to the Western world and say, "Hey, we're enlightened like you." And so the classical traditional Chinese medicine, which was always inclusive of the spirituality, that he started taking that out. But 20 years ago, clamped down on Qigong.
So 2000.
Hospitals shutting down, clinics shutting down, where you didn't even really want to talk about it. So the program was brought over and established here by one of the few non-Asian grandmasters, Dr. Jerry Allen Johnson, doctor of medical Qigong, doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, and was granted professorship there at one of the universities in, I think it was Hunan in Beijing.
Okay.
So he set the program up here in the United States, and
wait, I'm sorry. I'm going to go back. So they committed genocide in 2000?
1999 is when they began the Falun Gong persecution.
Holy
crackdown.
Crap. So it's not like back in the 40s, 50s, 60s
no, this is
with
recent.
Mao. This is, holy crap.
This is very recent. You know the Chinese performing group that tours through here? The Shen Yun?
Yeah.
They're based in New York. That is a whole Falun Gong community of those who practice this form of Qigong.
Wow.
And so that's why they're here. And that's why they tour around.
They're pilgrims.
Correct.
Coming from China to a place where they can practice their philosophy, religion.
Correct.
That actually makes me really sad. I'm not crying. I'm not going to cry. But that makes me really sad that they would do that. That's a thing that even in modern day of 20 years ago, that they would do such a strong. I mean, I know China's doing awful things to the Muslim population in eastern China right now,
putting them
in the essentially concentration camps.
The internment camps,
essentially
the re-education schools.
Yeah. I mean,
I saw a documentary on that.
That makes me so sad. And I mean, in their new tactics of tracking people with cameras all over and systems and points, I mean, and it's going to go nationwide here pretty soon versus only a couple cities. And then what's going on in Hong Kong right now, I mean, it's just a destruction of the beauty that thousands of years have created, not just religiously, but like in situations like this with Qigong, right? This is a very spiritual experience, medically being healed. And I mean, I'll be honest, other medical problems that I've had, it wasn't necessarily, as a kid, wasn't necessarily a medical doctor. It was a chiropractor that was more open to hallucinogenics. Is that how you say it? That really kind of cured me, that made it at least the cure faster. And it was the open-minded science that, open-minded spirituality with science that kind of, I feel like personally made me healed. And so it's just, anyway, that's why it makes me sad, because I feel like even though I didn't have necessarily Qigong as a personal element, but I think it's the idea of what modern medicine doesn't include, right? And it's being kicked out of one of the largest countries in the world. Anyway, sorry, that's just really sad that that's the case. But okay, so it's being taken care of. It's growing here in the U.S.
It is. There are there are less than a dozen schools that provide the certification training of the medical Qigong, the health Qigong. And I've opened here in Utah the first one.
Nice.
And it's a nonprofit organization, and so I'm working to build that up as I continue to go through the program myself, because it's a 4-year program. You start off as a practitioner, then you move into the therapist level, and then the master level, and then the doctor level. And in 2002, there was an act of Congress that created a division for complementary alternative medicine. And then in 2002, the White House commissioned a special report on CAM, complementary alternative medicine, and Qigong is recognized right there as a
not approved or
it's. No, the purpose of the report was not to give approval. It was to give recognition and sort of make a statement about, okay, we recognize that there is a role that complementary alternative medicine can play, especially in preventative health. Because right now the medical world is not positioned to prevent disease.
Yeah.
No. And so Qigong, as a mind-body practice, is a very powerful preventative medicine. And it's based on this saying, and I love this, to cure a disease after it's appeared is like trying to dig a well after one is already thirsty. To maintain order instead of correct disorder is one of the greatest principles of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
You don't forge weapons after the battle has already begun.
Yep.
So it's powerful, and it's based in something so simple. Breathing, movement, mindful intention, train the consciousness. And that through it, there's the promise of not only cultivating energy that then begins helping the body resist illness and disease, strengthens the immune system, but it cleanses and unifies the emotional, the mental, the spiritual altogether. Which is why I say this has helped me live my religion, because I strive to adhere to the commandment to love God with all my heart, might, mind, and strength. And to be very honest, I never really understood what that meant. Mm-hmm. I even heard, I was at a Institute devotional on UVSC campus back when it was UVSC. Mm-hmm. Robert Matthews, who's was an incredible scholar, was speaking, and he shared something that Elder Neal A. Maxwell, an apostle, shared. He asked Elder Maxwell, "What does it mean? How do you worship God with all your mind?" And what Brother Matthews shared was Elder Maxwell said, "I don't know." How do you worship God with all your mind? So, to worship Him with the mind, with the body, with the might, and with the strength, it's hard to wrap your head around that. Within the framework of the energy anatomy of Chinese medicine, Chinese energetic medicine, there are the three energies called the Jing, the Qi, and the Shen. The physical, the emotional, and the heart-mind. When I experienced what that felt like, then it made sense to love God with all my Jing, Qi, and Shen. It's really hard to explain that.
I don't know if the listeners are understanding it, but I feel like I agree. It is hard to express it, but I think it's something like you said at the beginning. You have to experience it.
Once you experience it,
and I'll be honest. There's an ambiance. I don't know if Lauren's feeling it, but I feel like an ambiance in this room right now. Just thinking about it, and internally, right? Because I'm going through my own struggles, and I'm thinking of just what you've been explaining. Of like, wow, okay, I see the influence of worshiping God, my God, in this way of more of a oneness or more of a internal, I can't even put it in words either. I mean, it's like a very mental, like I just started having like this mentality of like when you pray, right? Or pray or meditate. I mean, my guess is Eastern culture says meditation way more than pray. But in LDS or Western culture, we usually say the word prayer, but we don't really meditate. It's more of just rote prayers, right? Or it's not something, it's like, or frantic. Sometimes you say like, oh my gosh, it's not saying that frantic prayers aren't heard, right? Or meaningful. But I remember being challenged once by a religious professor at BYU, Book of Mormon professor at BYU. He goes, I challenge you to have a half an hour long prayer. I think like 3 or 4 times during the semester. And it was such an out of body experience to be honest, because I don't know if I've ever truly prayed for that long before. And but to keep it sincere, right? You got to keep that conversation. And I prayed out loud during the time, and it was such an empowering experience, but also I found out a lot about myself during that experience. And so I imagine if you can have that without having to have that 30-minute vocal conversation to the normal person hearing you talk to yourself, right? But it's a deep personal. You
learn to connect with it much quicker.
Yeah.
And you learn how to maintain it. You learn how to abide in it. So in Chinese, you take the character for heart and mind, and they're the same. It's called the heart-mind. But there's the original heart-mind, and then there's the acquired heart-mind. The acquired heart-mind is very analytical, it's very logical, and it's where we spend a lot of our time as we analyze and try to figure out our problems. We take an analytical approach to our problems in life, and we decide we're going to think our way through this. We're going to think our way through the problem. The original heart-mind is that connection with our higher self. It involves more intuition and the spiritual inspiration and guidance. The two are constantly struggling for which one's going to lead out. And so we look at that experience in the Western world and we think, okay, well, that's the brain and the heart. I have a struggle between my brain and heart. And one time I was given advice, if you ever struggle between your head and your heart, go with your heart. But in Chinese, it's understanding that the heart mind, the original, or what they call the Yuan Shen, the original heart mind, is what you can train. You can train that through Qigong, so that is what you are always present in. And through this, you're developing and you're awakening a lot of spiritual gifts, spiritual abilities. You sharpen your intuition. And it's inherent in everybody, in all of us. And your spiritual perceptiveness becomes more and more accurate, and you're able to know things without knowing. And so that's just one example of what energy cultivation can do. And
can you be normal while doing that? Can people look at you and go, oh, that guy's normal? Or are you this wise person that's walking down the street all the time and you don't have to be in a nice cloak, right? But you're just walking around and, sorry, I just imagine, I imagine like some of the Asian, movies based in Asia, and you just have that wise person that's got the cloak and they're just super wise, right?
It changes you. When I went through the training, the first training, there's many levels of training, and nowadays they're presented in intensives. In China, if you went to a medical Qigong school, you can do this every day. You know, this was your program, just like any other university program. But here, it's very hard to present it in that way, in that fashion. So it's done in intensives, 5-day intensives, crammed together for 32 hours of training, and it's so overwhelming and so exhausting. Because you're getting a physical, mental, emotional workout as you're going through these, learning these exercises and these movements and the meditations. But in the manual, we were told, and this is the first training, we were told, if you continue with this training, a year from now, your friends are going to be different. Because you're going to be challenging their belief systems of what is possible and what you can do.
Have you lost friends?
Funny enough, I have. And
why?
When you become serious about finding out who you truly are, things surface that are not pretty. And it's called facing your shadow self. This is where you confront all your insecurities, all of your fears, the shame, the self-hatred, the anger, and you work through those. But it affects everything. It affects your relationships. It affects your perception of reality. Because something that Stephen Covey has been quoted of saying, and I don't know if he originated this, but we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are.
Yeah. Yep.
Our filters that inform our consciousness and our perception of reality is entirely based on our experiences.
Not to interrupt, but I'm going to. It's like when you have a very spiritual experience, say like the birth of my daughter, like probably for the next month, or maybe that's maybe too long, but like the next 3 days, holy smokes, my perception of the world was so like loving. I mean, I felt so much love, and I agree with that, right? It's like you just like you have, I mean, to me, the birth was a very spiritual growing experience for me, to become a father, to see my wife go through this incredible process, and then to have this amazing new person in my life. And so my perception was very different, right? I mean, I think everyone to some extent can relate to that, but I mean, then it goes away, right? I mean, things change, life happens. So
you get pulled back into the mundane world.
Yes, you get pulled back into the, oh my gosh, I'm self-loathing, or I'm selfish, or anyway, you get into the natural human characteristics, I think.
So there's a phrase that describes that, and it's the mundane world. Part of becoming a Qigong practitioner is, through the training, advancing beyond the mundane world. So you're going through this transformation, and you are becoming elevated. You're becoming enlightened. Mm-hmm. And it does change the way you see yourself and everything. And it changes, more importantly, probably how you feel about yourself. You develop a greater sensitivity and self-awareness of where there is the inner turmoil, the inner conflict, certain things that have not been accepted yet, certain things that have not healed. And once you do that, you make these personal breakthroughs, and there's this surge of energy, and you have a greater degree of vitality, and this is why Qigong isn't just a mind-body practice, really. Qigong becomes one's attitude of life, one's paradigm of the world. And then it really shifts your mind into understanding what I thought was impossible before has just been blown away by what's possible.
So could friends and those that you lost as friends, they just thought it was too weird? Like what was the main reason?
In this particular situation, actually, there were friends who were also going through the program.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
So we all were going through this awakening with each other. And
just couldn't handle it.
Well, what started off as really small grew, and it became this humongous dividing factor to the point where I couldn't even continue in the program. I pulled out, looked for a different teacher. And there's not that many teachers in the United States. There's not that many doctors that you can go study and train under, especially when you're trying to open a clinic and you want to practice. You really have to depend upon the understanding and the experience of one who has gone on before. This isn't just something that you get certified in 1 or 2 weekends and then you proclaim yourself a practitioner or a healer or anything like that. It's not that.
So it wasn't someone outside looking in.
No, within. Friends that I have outside, I think they're probably curious and they're observing me from a distance. And because every once in a while, if I bump into them in person, they're like, so I see what you're posting on Facebook. Looks interesting. I go, yeah, it is. It's cool.
You should come learn more about it.
Come check it out. I now have a school.
Yeah. Okay. So really hasn't. I mean, you've got some people saying, "Oh, that's a little weird," and I think those people are usually the people that are just content. They're not to say that they're arrogant, but they're kind of closed-minded. Well, I shouldn't say naturally.
But I don't blame them. I don't blame anybody for thinking what they think about this. Mm-hmm. But I do think it's unfortunate if they don't at least have an open mind to consider or to explore. Because just like with anything that you have received in your life that has made it better, and you have greater happiness, and it's been good for you, you naturally want to share that.
Yeah.
And so...
Do people ever... I mean, obviously we live in Utah, so it's... and you live in Utah County, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, pretty heavily LDS populated. Mm-hmm. Do people ever go kind of like what you said personally at the beginning? You're like, how does this fit? You know, I'm going to dive into this and I'm worried it might take away from my religion. Do people talk to you about that?
One of the first questions I used to get a lot in the clinic when somebody would schedule an appointment and come visit with me is, are you LDS? And how do you do both? How do you
balance
reconcile what you're doing as if what I'm doing is against LDS rules, regulations, and policies, which I don't understand that it does at all.
Yeah. Especially from what I've been learning just tonight is there's really no contradiction.
No. The contradiction in their minds, and this could be one other tangent, maybe this is great for another night of discussion or whatever, has to deal with priesthood authority. So, yeah, that's another topic, but that's the big question is, if I were not a member of the church and I had the gift of healing and I exercised the gift of healing, then it's cool.
Right.
But if I were then to join, there's a mentality and an attitude of, well, you have to stop that. You have to stop doing things that are bringing people closer to
another source
healing, and which is just natural. See, this goes back to the understanding of what is Qi.
Yeah.
When you understand Qi, it's this universal energy. This is what connects all things in the universe. And
so is it, I mean, I guess that maybe I'm going to open up this can of worms. Just to clarify, the priesthood in the LDS doctrine is the power and authority of God here on earth given to man. And so in light of that, that means just like how Jesus healed, you can heal with the priesthood power. You can give we say, here's a priesthood blessing, and that priesthood blessing is dictated upon the words of the Holy Ghost, inspired by the Holy Ghost, to say what to say, while you're giving this essentially a prayer over that person. And many times it can include healing, right? Healing of spiritual and mental and physical healings. And so what I'm understanding here is obviously Qi medical is going to be, hey, let's heal you.
You're using it for healing.
For healing. And so as an LDS person who believes that there's this priesthood power that can do this versus, I'm going to, for lack of definition, separation is Qi power, like from Qiqong. And so, if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that LDS people come and go, how do you have both of these? You have a religious healing that's very strong, very firm as part of the doctrine of this form of Christianity, and then you have a spiritual that's not really a religion, but also is, but in the sense of it's not really a religion, it's more of a philosophy, but it physically heals people without medicine, like modern medicine techniques.
Right.
Am I hearing that correct?
So one of the ways that I try to explain it and how it makes sense to me, how I feel at peace with it, is that priesthood deals with authorization. And one of the signs, one of the fruits that one is authorized in acting with this authorization is healing. Now, there's purposes beyond that. There's performance of ordinances that are necessary for exaltation.
Baptism, etc.
Correct.
And that's done by the priesthood power.
Authority.
Yes, thank you. Priesthood authority, not power.
Right.
Yes.
So authority is bestowed.
Yes.
I can show my authority on a piece of paper by showing this person became authorized by this person became authorized by person, and that's who authorized me. Power to do it is completely dependent upon cultivation of virtues, the righteousness, that which is right in me, which means I'm in alignment with God. My spirit is pure in its intent to do that which is in accordance with the will of heaven. That's where the power comes in. So, outside of this, within a Qigong clinic, Qi is understood as it's in all things. It's an internal medicine. It's sort of like if one day you're depressed and you go to a doctor to ask for, let's say, Prozac. Okay, I'm just using as an example. And the doctor turns to you and says, do you know that you have your own Prozac in you? All it takes is just standing and moving in a particular way, and then breathing, and then training your mindfulness, and you unlock your own Prozac. And it's what you need right now. And by doing this, you're going to clean up a lot of deep-seated yucky stuff.
Never mind that I'm going to lose my job because I just told you the secret.
Right.
Prozac.
But how amazing that would be, just the realization, the paradigm shift of, oh my goodness, wait, I can cultivate something within me to do this? And because of the nature of energy, I know how to do it in myself. And I know how energy works, that I can stimulate the same in another person, in you. Because I can help you recognize where the natural Prozac is blocked. And it has to deal with some negative, limiting belief systems, suppressed emotions, physical misalignment. And so I
guarantee one leg is longer than the other. I need to.
It's typical, actually.
Yeah.
I will stand as a facilitator to help you heal yourself, to become healed. Now, again, some people have problems with that. And it's just like what happened in Moses' time. And I love this story and I think it's in the book of Numbers, chapter 11. I'm just going to throw that in, either Numbers 2 or number 11. There's a special meeting, and all the leaders are supposed to come together and receive instruction. But there's a few who are outside of the camp, and the Spirit came upon, and they're prophesying. They're doing some miraculous things, but not everybody's fine with that. In fact, some take up issue, and they run and tell Moses, so-and-so is out there outside of the camp, and they're prophesying. You need to go stop them. Why? You can just imagine what's going on in Moses' mind. Yeah, they're not you. And they're doing these things, and those things are supposed to be you. So power of, doing miraculous things is, it has to be done in certain channels. So it's restrictive. And I love Moses' response. He's like, are you jealous for my sake? I would to God that all of his people were prophets. I wish all of you were doing this.
Yeah, you can get more people off my back, too. I know he was pretty tired, right?
Yeah.
But, and that's where his father-in-law said, hey, you need to designate people to be over people. Then those people are over other people, etc. That's a pretty cool story. I don't remember that. I'm sure I read it at one point. But that's a pretty powerful message, right? Is that it's not just the one source, right? It's not just the one place that you can get divine direction. There can be other inspirations that God allows, and such as these few people outside of the group.
It's just waking up to the reality that, you know what? We all have a connection with the divine. We all do, regardless of whatever our religious or political affiliations are. Once you awaken to that reality and connect with energy that can flow, then the natural consequence is you can heal, you improve, you become energized.
I like that.
You clear the mind.
I like that a lot. So I'm actually, if it'll load, oh man, it looks like I have to download everything. But too bad I don't have my paper scriptures here. But there's some pretty powerful stuff. I guess this is my own personal philosophy about a lot of this. Darn it has to download. I must have updated the app, but I believe this is my personal philosophy, because right in this essence, we're running into an issue of there's priesthood authority. If you're LDS, you believe that this is God's way of speaking to you through a priesthood blessing.
And if you're going to receive healing outside of conventional Western medical ways, it has to be this.
Yes. Yep. This is the only way, right? And I mean, clearly not all LDS people believe this, but this is a general philosophy. And so how dare you go to another source when you have the best, right? Quote unquote, the best, or this is the only one. And so my personal philosophy is that every religion, at least religion that preaches good, because there's a lot of religions that don't preach good, is inspired of God. And obviously, as a Latter-day Saint, we do believe to be the true and living church of God, meaning it has elements of truth, has truth in it, and it is living by the sense of God continually gives revelation to it, that it's an ongoing faith.
It's the authorized channel.
Right. And so, but what about all these other religions? I mean, as I learned about Taoism, as I learned about Shintoism or Baha'i, I don't know if you say Baha'ism, the religion of Baha'i, and Islam even. Honestly, when I was learning about Islam, I learned a lot about myself and my own faith. There's a lot of similarities with Islam and LDS religion, more so than just Christianity in general, not the extreme parts of modern day or even ancient day Islam, but there's a lot of theology that's very beautiful in Islam that we don't, as Westerners, don't know about, that actually is very similar to LDS.
Oh, wow.
And so, honestly, I kind of had the spiritual awakening. I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? There's all these religions that have so many good things.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, but I grew up thinking I'm part of the church of the true and living gospel. So how can these people have so much good in them? Especially not being Christian, right? I mean, Jesus is the way, the light, right, and the way, right? And so I had to take a big spiritual journey. And there's one scripture that I found, and I don't know if I can pull it up, but it's maybe it'll pull up now, but it's in Alma, chapter 19, if I can find it. And this is the chapter. Oh, sorry, 29. This is the chapter that Alma says, "Oh, that I were an angel." Right? This is a prophet, kind of like Moses. Like, man, if only I could share it to the whole world, or if there were more people that could share it. And he says, verse 8, "For behold, the Lord doth grant unto all nations of their own nation and tongue to teach his word, yea, in wisdom all that he seeth fit that they should have."
Wow.
Therefore, we see that the Lord doth counsel in wisdom according to that which is just and true. So to me, as a Latter-day Saint, I see this, and I see the prophet Alma saying, look, I can't be that angel that gets to share the gospel to everyone around the world, but God has granted people in elements of or portions of truth. Maybe not all of it, maybe more than other places, in their own tongue, in their own nation, the truth. And so hearing things like this, and it's not just Taoism, right? It's these other religions that I saw good in. I think, holy smokes, this God isn't a God of just Mormonism. This isn't a God of ancient Judaism.
No.
This is a God of the whole world.
He's the God of all truth.
Of truth.
And I really appreciate an article that was posted on the LDS website, lds.org. If I can remember the title of it, but it essentially was saying we treasure all truth, and how the church does not have a corner on all truth.
Right.
And we don't proclaim too. Even the founder, Joseph Smith, saying we embrace all of that which is truth, bring it. And our whole purpose is to make good men better.
Yep.
I'm trying to refer to another statement by another president of the church, but when you find and discover something outside of convention that brings and produces fruit of goodness, then my faith tells me that is from Jesus Christ. That is from God. And it's not a betrayal.
Right.
To openly embrace and want to share.
Yeah. I think I like that. Is it possible that Qigong is 4,000 years?
Uh-huh.
Is it possible that God said, hey, look, here's a way of healing through essentially equivalent of the priesthood power. Here's a science or a practice that you can have. Could he have inspired the person that started teaching it?
The more I study and realize what the ancient Taoists, what the ancient Chinese understood about the human body, Scott, I will tell you there's no way that this did not come from the divine. There is no way they could have understood these things to the depth and the degree that they do and did without revelation.
Yeah.
Knowing the energetic structure of all things,
yep,
including the body.
I think no matter what theology you have, there's more to the, and I'm quoting a professor, and I don't know if I quite like the quote, but I'm going to say it anyway. There's more to the chessboard is bigger than you think it is. There's more moving pieces. And I only don't like it because it's like there's a battle, right? There's someone that's going to win. And I guess you could say it's evil, right? Satan or something like that. But the game that we're playing in this life is way bigger than we can even comprehend right now. And so the idea that there's inspiration outside of things. I mean, there's Brigham Young, second prophet, second president of the LDS Church, said, I mean, if you could take the scripture, the holy scriptures written across the world of ages, you would need a wagon full, right? I mean, these are people that had wagons, so you would need a wagon full to do it, versus at that time, it's, okay, you got the Holy Book and the Bible, or Holy Bible and the Book of Mormon, right? And so there's so much truth that has come out that I think that I agree with you. I think there's basic things that are so basic to our modern day technology or modern day thinking that came from divine inspiration ages ago. But to us, it's so natural, right? Because we've grown up with it.
And if we could just look beyond the cultural trance, if we can look beyond the rigid belief systems that we've conformed to, and just be open to that fact, that you're just talking about, of there are so many truths and they're so beautiful, and taste it, try it, test it.
Yeah, there's some deep stuff that it seems like Qigong. I mean, holy smokes! I mean, I've heard these buzzwords, right? Oneness, learn more about yourself through meditation, movement, right? I mean, I think I've seen people perform the Qigong movements like in news and TV shows and stuff like that, or at least a form of it. And you see these things, but I think it's not until you actually learn. It's kind of like when you're LDS missionary. People don't really know what the LDS doctrine is until they actually sit down with an LDS missionary, right? Or an LDS member. You don't really grasp the depth of it until you actually start to experience it for yourself, which is funny that's what you basically said at the beginning. It's like Qi is something you have to experience. Let's talk a little bit about your class, your current foundation. It's called Blue Petal, right? It's the only one in Utah, you said?
It's the only medical Qigong school.
Okay, medical Qigong school. So can they move up as they go to these classes? Like you said that there's different levels or like mastery levels.
Right. There are general weekly classes that I'm starting to teach that give people a sampling. They can come, try it out, experience what the movements and cultivating the Qi is like. But then there are certification training courses that I bring my teacher, who's a doctor of medical Qigong. She comes in from Seattle, and she's coming this week, in fact, in 2 days, to lead a 3-day training. And it does build on itself. And one thing I respect about this modality is that in order to increase your effectiveness as a practitioner, or if you become a doctor, to increase your effectiveness as a doctor, you must have and continue with self-cultivation. I was talking to another medical Qiqong doctor over the phone. He's based in Southern California. And he said, what makes this different? You can be a cardiovascular surgeon and a total jerk.
Yep.
But you can't be that when you're a medical Qigong doctor. You have to be the virtuous, clean and pure vessel when you're doing this work. So that's one thing that I appreciate about how this program is built, is as you progress, you have to go through your own healing first. You have to clear out the gunk that we all have.
Yep.
And we all have it because of the traumas of life, the belief systems that are passed down that are false or limiting.
Yeah.
And qualified to stand in that place as a conduit of the divine.
So as you're going through your process, what were the levels again, and what level are you?
Practitioner, therapist, master, doctor. I'm working on my therapist, the second level.
Nice. So what does that take to move up?
Well, that's when you start getting into the specializations where you're learning protocols for treating pediatrics, geriatrics, gynecology, neurology. Essentially anything you can study in a Western medical school, you'll find its energetic equivalent in Chinese energy medicine.
Do you have to take chemistry?
No, it helps if you understand anatomy and physiology. It helps if you have an understanding of Western classifications of diseases and illness. But when you're working on in the treatment room, you're just looking at what's going on energetically.
Yeah.
So you've been trained with using tools for diagnostics.
So there's a physical tool, like a
no.
Okay.
You become the
you are
tool.
the tool.
You're learning to assess where the qi is deficient, where the qi is excessive, where the qi is blocked or stagnant, or sometimes it's through temperature variance, hot and cold. And of course, it really helps if you have an understanding of what is called the 5-element theory, Chinese classical medicine.
Have you ever heard of rapid eye
movement?
No, it's rapid eye therapy is what it's called.
No.
So it's very energy based as well. My aunt is a certified rapid eye technician.
Is it EMDR?
I think so.
Eye movement.
I think that's what it is. EMDR is the
I've heard of
acronym
that.
for it. Okay. It's anyway. You're just kind of bringing back all these like memories. She did that on me for my stomach actually, and for a little while it helped. But it's also turned out not to be a health healing session. Or like a physical health. It was very emotional, very spiritual and mental healing session.
Yeah. So that's where the harder healing is. It's a greater challenge to heal the spirit, the heart mind, what the Chinese call the Shen, to heal the heart mind, because then you can heal the energy, and then the physical body responds. We tend to think that the physical body is stronger and it overcomes the mind, and it's not. The spirit is what upholds the energy, and the energy upholds the physical body. So if you can heal what's going on the heart-mind level, the spiritual level, and heal the emotions and the emotional traumas of the past, then the physical body is the last to shift. And we try to make that the first to shift.
Right.
We just want to get rid of the symptoms.
Yeah.
We just say, get rid of it, give me the magic pill.
Get rid of this chest pain. And
that's when we really have to go deep. So the the name of the center, the foundation is Blue Petal Foundation, but the center is called Center for Deep Healing. That's the home of Blue Petal Foundation with the new location that I just opened. Because deep healing, it first becomes about eradicating the symptoms. We just want to heal and get better. But then it becomes a journey of self-discovery of, you have to go deeper. You have to address things that probably you've been ignoring for a long time. And it could be subconsciously. You're just suppressing these things. But through healing that, heal the heart, when the spirit is at peace, the heart is in harmony. When the heart is in harmony, the body will be whole.
You talk deeper, like suppressed feelings, like during the rapid eye, I just call it rapid eye, EMDR. Like it was deep. Like it mentally got me back to, this is going to sound really kooky, but it mentally got me back to like my birth.
Right.
And like, not even that, but like before my birth.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I don't know how long it was. I think it was like 2 hours. I mean, it's exhausting for my aunt. She doesn't do it anymore because she's much older now. And it's because it's just so much even for her to be part of the session. But holy crap. Like, I don't know if I made up memories in my mind or if they were like actual memories of being a toddler that normally you can't remember. And it was just, but it was the idea is that it gets rid of the suppressed negative experiences. Like if you're like scared of dogs and it's because something happened as a kid or as a baby,
right? And
you can get rid of that. Is there elements of that?
It's all picked up in the subconscious mind. All of the programs. Okay, first of all, researchers have discovered that 95% of our behavior is governed by the subconscious mind. Subconscious. And most of the programs, if not all of the programs, have been installed into the subconscious mind by the time we're 7 years old. So if you think about it, other people program your life before you're at the age of maturity to discriminate against what's really good for you and what's not healthy for you.
Yeah.
It's all there. And so, especially if the traumas have been involved betrayal, rejection, and abandonment. And for a kid, that could be a very stern no. From us, we're just trying to get them to stop doing something that's annoying. But for them, boom, you just traumatized with a form of rejection that leaves some sort of scar on the psyche. So it's at that age, we're very impressionable. Everything has an influence.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no, I believe that for sure. I mean, you see the physical abuse, right, from parents. It usually is just passed on generation to generation because of what I think the kids see as a kid.
Right.
Right. And so, okay, I had one last question. I guess, I mean, we're going on to pretty close to 2 hours, I think, here, which is
awesome.
Which honestly, I thoroughly enjoy. I don't know if Lauren has to go to the bathroom or whatnot, but you shared a picture of someone. I'm just gonna put it out there of a gal that went to took over a lesson. She booked a lesson for a colleague of hers that died.
Yeah, yeah.
And she, I mean, that's amazing that she went in behalf of that. But she looked like she was dressed as was she a polygamist?
She is a member of the fundamental LDS church.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I was just like, oh, that's awesome that she's doing that. And we're like, oh, she's dressed like what you see in the news of polygamists. Yeah. So she's an FLDS, and so she came as an FLDS people. I feel like my experience is you don't do anything outside of that community.
So she actually is divorced from her husband.
Okay.
I don't know the situation, but it was an act of courage and bravery for her to separate from that.
Huge.
And I don't have much insight into the population, but after getting to know her name's Lamille, I have so much respect for her. And I'm blown away by what she can do and what she does. And I was curious about the same thing. It's like, oh, how well are you gonna integrate into this.
Yeah.
But she did, and she brought with her a lot of knowledge already and experience and intuitive insight. I thought, wow, you're ready for this.
That's awesome.
And so she's currently progressing through the program. She took the first training. She'll take the next one in November.
Wow.
And so...
That's awesome. And she came on behalf of her colleague that died in a car accident. That's awesome. And I guess I'm assuming in appreciation or in honor of her colleague.
Well, when she reached out, honestly, it seems like the community was so private and secret. My first response was a little suspicious. I was like, well, okay, what's going on? But no, she genuinely died when she was in a van and she was with her sister. And she took the turn too quickly off the exit of I-15.
Oh, no.
And it rolled, and she wasn't seatbelted, and so she was ejected, and that's how she lost her life. And
it was her sister.
No, her business colleague.
Oh, okay.
Was in the van with her sister.
Oh, okay.
Her sister got life flighted, was in critical condition, but she died. So I was fully expecting to just issue a refund. And I'm like, hey, that's no problem. But Lamille told me, she goes, no, if Jane saw value in this, then I need to do this. Wow. I need to pursue this. I was like, wow. Okay. Well, you can take her spot. You're welcome to come. So for me, here we are talking about looking beyond what becomes your conventional. She's an example of what we can learn from each other, what our cultures can learn from other cultures. Mm-hmm. If we will just be willing to experiment upon the fruit.
Yeah. Yeah. And not be scared. I mean, I guess that's part of the willingness, right? It's to not be scared. Or it's okay to be scared and try it. Because you said that's what you did too. You were a little scared.
Acknowledge that this is different. Acknowledge this is outside of the comfort zone.
Maybe a little weird.
And weird.
Yep.
Which is why I say I don't blame anybody for thinking what they do about it. But I will fault them if they are closed off from even just hearing or being willing to understand and learn something that for them could become life-changing.
Yeah.
Revolutionary.
So happiness through Qigong is possible.
And one recognizes that there is no way to happiness, but happiness is the way. Speaking about how the Tao means the way.
Yeah.
When you learn the way, you follow this flow. You feel the energy flow of life that's in you, and you follow the natural flow of life. And you realize that you're on a path. There is a divine path for each of us. And along that path is reconnection to the true self. And reconnecting to that true self is a powerful, meaningful way of facilitating contentment, oneness, happiness, inner peace. And I think anybody who practices it with the understanding of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ is better off.
Yeah, I believe that. Wow, that's really powerful. Well, thank you so much. How can people find more about your nonprofit?
BluePetalFoundation.org.
Okay. And you have a Facebook page?
I do.
Is it not Blue Petal Foundation?
Just look for Blue Petal, and it's the blue rose petal, P-E-T-A-L, not the gas pedal.
Yeah, P-E-D.
Because I have a lot of people confusing. Blue Petal.
Nice. Okay. And how do they get started? Can they sign up for a class here in Utah, obviously?
They can. They can come to a class for free. The first class, I welcome anybody as a guest. Come experiment. Right now, I only have 2 classes offered, but as I'm having the grand opening, this is going to grow. I know it will. It's already grown faster than I was expecting it, and so I'm doing a lot of catch up to try to keep up with the interest. But come experiment, come enjoy, come taste. come explore. And because I guarantee if you come with an openness, you will experience something.
Yeah, I agree. And how does someone, let's say they're in Seattle, where do they go? Is there can they just Google Qigong classes?
You can. I know there are in that area because that's where my teacher, her clinic is called the Sacred Path Medicine. Her name is Dr. Zen Huang. She's Korean. And I'm sure at some community center in any part of the country might have a class that's being taught,
So there's not like a master source of Qigong facilities, not like a directory of them.
Well, there is an online directory. There's the national directory, and I don't know QiqongInstitute.org or .com, something like that, where you can find where there are practitioners based in, where they live, what state they're in. And of course, there's videos where you can go and see what Qigong is, but I recommend learning Qigong from a teacher,
right?
A qualified teacher.
It's not something you can just do on your own, at least at first.
Not really, because it's not the best way of connecting with the energy, with the chi.
Got it. That's awesome. Well, thanks so much, Ben. Jimin.
Thank you, Scott. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks for all those that are listening. We greatly appreciate it. We greatly appreciate all of your sharing of the podcast, the videos. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, iTunes, anywhere that you can listen to podcasts. But also, if you like it, please give us a rating, a positive rating. If you don't like it, just give us a 4-star rating. That way we know that you don't like it. All right. Thanks, guys.